In the extreme north, breathing too deeply can freeze the moisture in your lungs into microscopic shards of glass. This is not a weather condition. It is an apex predator in its own right. Welcome to the Arctic, the ultimate biological filter of our planet. As we journey from its southern edges, straight into the frozen heart of the polar cap, the rules of survival become merciless. The and filter strips away the weak, the slow, the inflexible. What remains here are not just animals. They are evolutionary masterpieces. In this expedition, we will not just observe the killers of the North. We will dissect their engineering. We will flow through the frozen biomes that forged them and uncover the mind-bending adaptations that allow them to turn a wasteland into a hunting ground. Our descent begins at the edge of the world, the Treeline. Here, the great boreal forests fight a losing battle against the cold. The wind is so violent, it physically deforms the trees, twisting them into agonizing shapes. Beyond this line, the trees simply surrender, and the open tundra begins. This is a biome defined by absolute exposure, a flat, infinite desert of rock and snow where the sun can disappear for months. With zero cover, hiding is impossible. So to survive here, the herbivores had to become living fortresses. Meet the Muskox, a relic from the Pleistocene epoch, walking the earth alongside mammoths. Their underwool, known as kiviut, is 8 times warmer than sheep's wool, and their skulls. They are reinforced with 3 inches of solid bone, forming a biological crash helmet. When threatened, they form an impenetrable wall of horns and muscle. To crack a fortress like this on an open plain, you cannot rely on a stealthy ambush. You need a siege engine. You need an army. Meet the Arctic wolf, the phantoms of the frozen wastes. But do not confuse them with the wolves of the southern forests. Evolution has radically re-engineered their anatomy. Notice their rounded ears and noticeably shorter snouts. This is an extreme application of Allen's rule. In this way, nature minimizes the surface area, preventing frostbite on the extremities in winds with temperatures 60 degrees below zero. But their greatest marvel is hidden beneath the ice they walk on. Standing on bare, frozen ground would drain a normal mammal's core heat in minutes. But the Arctic wolf possesses a counter-current heat exchange system in its paws. Warm arterial blood pumped from the heart wraps tightly around the cold venous blood returning from the toes. The outgoing blood literally heats the incoming blood, keeping their paws just above freezing. They don't just walk on the ice, they conquer it. Yet, physical perfection is not enough. The tundra is starved of calories. If every female in a pack had pups, there wouldn't be enough meat. and they would all starve. So they operate under a brutal, totalitarian law. Only the alpha pair is allowed to breed. If a subordinate female gives birth, the alpha female will actively eliminate the pups without hesitation. It sounds cruel, but it is the ultimate sacrifice. The entire pack suppresses its deepest genetic drives to serve a single bloodline. They cease to be individuals, transforming into a flawless, synchronized superorganism. When this superorganism hunts the armored muskoxen, they don't rush. They use psychological warfare. With massive lungs built for marathons, they surround the defensive ring and they wait. Sometimes for hours. They are looking for a single moment of panic, a calf stepping out of line. The moment the ring breaks, the silence of the tundra is shattered. The siege turns into a surgical execution. The Arctic wolf dominates by weaponizing patience and absolute loyalty. But in the deep freeze of the Arctic, a kill is never truly finished. Once the wolves eat their fill, they leave behind massive bones and torn muscle. Within hours, the temperature drops so low that these leftovers turn into a monolith of solid ice. Impenetrable to the wolves' teeth, they must abandon it. But this wasteland wastes nothing, because drawn to this frozen graveyard is a solitary creature engineered specifically to tear the ice apart. Indigenous tribes called it the dark spirit of the tundra, the Wolverine. Do not let its small size deceive you. Weighing barely 40 pounds, it is a creature forged from pure, unadulterated aggression. There are documented records of a single Wolverine driving a fully grown grizzly bear away from its own kill. But its true superpower is its bite. Remember the frozen muskox carcass the wolves left behind. In the deep Arctic, leftover meat becomes an impenetrable monolith of ice. To crack it, evolution performed a miracle. It rotated the wolverine's upper molars exactly 90 degrees inward, transforming its jaws into biological bolt cutters. It shatters frozen femurs like glass, extracting the nutrient-rich marrow that every other predator leaves behind. It leaves absolutely nothing. And the cold? The cold simply does not exist for this animal. Its fur is structurally hydrophobic. It physically repels moisture, meaning it will never accumulate frost from its own breath, no matter how far the temperature drops. It doesn't just survive the frozen wasteland, it devours it. While the Wolverine cleans the frozen surface, a completely different war is being waged underneath it. Welcome to the Subnivean Zone. Hidden network of tunnels buried beneath feet of dense snow. Here, insulated from the deadly winds, the temperature hovers just around freezing, and here, the lemming thrives. Small, frantic, and constantly breeding, they are the lifeblood of the tundra. Buried in the dark, they are completely invisible to the eyes of the wolves and the claws of the Wolverine. They feel safe. But in the Arctic, nowhere is truly safe. Because if you cannot be seen, you can still be heard. Enter the snowy owl, the acoustic phantom of the north. In an environment where the sun does not set for 100 days, hiding in the dark is impossible. So the snowy owl became the illusion itself. Its plumage perfectly erases its silhouette against the melting snow and quartz rock. But to hunt prey that is completely buried under the snowpack, this bird had to reinvent the concept of hearing. Look closely at its face. That wide, flat disc is not just for show. It is a biological, parabolic antenna. The stiff feathers channel the faintest micro vibrations into ears that are asymmetrically placed on its skull. One ear sits higher than the other. This allows the owl to calculate exact three-dimensional coordinates. It can pinpoint the racing heartbeat of a lemming, buried under 2 feet of solid snow, from half a mile away. When it strikes, it breaks the laws of physics. The edges of its flight feathers are uniquely serrated, breaking down air turbulence. A creature with a 5-foot wingspan, diving at 40 miles per hour, generating absolutely zero acoustic signature. It is terrifyingly silent. The lemming never hears the wings. It never hears death approaching. The snowy owl teaches a brutal lesson to everything that lives here. In the Arctic, the things you cannot hear are the ones that kill you. But as we push even further north, the solid ground runs out. The tundra fractures, giving way to the frozen edge of the Arctic Ocean. Here, the rules change again. On the shifting sea ice, you cannot dig tunnels. You cannot hide. You are exposed to the true giants of the north. And to survive in the shadow of giants, you must become a master of theft. The solid ground vanishes. The tundra fractures, giving way to the frozen edge of the Arctic Ocean. Here, the rules of survival change yet again. On the shifting sea ice, you cannot dig tunnels. You cannot hide behind rocks. You are completely exposed to the most violent winds on Earth and the crushing jaws of the true giants. To survive in the shadow of giants, you cannot rely on brute force. You must become a master of theft. You must become the ultimate opportunist. Arctic fox. A creature weighing barely 8 pounds, surviving in a landscape designed to crush monsters. Look at this animal. It doesn't look like a killer, but its physiology is a marvel of thermal engineering. It is the only canine on the planet with thick, dense fur growing on the very soles of its feet, acting like built-in snow boots that completely muffle its footsteps on the ice. Its metabolism is so perfectly adapted, it will not even begin to shiver until the temperature drops to -90 degrees Fahrenheit. It is wrapped in a biological spacesuit. But on the barren sea ice, finding a meal is mathematically impossible for a creature this size. So, the Arctic fox plays a deadly game of Russian roulette. It shadows the apex king of the ice, the polar bear. The fox will follow a bear for dozens of miles, waiting for the giant to make a kill. It lives entirely off the scraps left behind. But this is a razor's edge. If the bear is truly starving or irritated by the thief, the scavenger instantly becomes the prey. It is a life lived in constant proximity to death, relying on agility, absolute audacity, and the hope that the monster it follows will spare its life for one more day. The fox knows better than to step too close to the dark water, because beneath the ice, the rules of the surface no longer apply. Down here in the crushing depths, brute force is replaced by something far more terrifying: pure, calculating intellect. The Orca, a 6-ton torpedo of muscle, equipped with a brain that rivals our own in structural complexity. While wolves dominate the tundra, orcas are the undisputed masters of the frozen ocean. But they do not just hunt using their size. They rely on culture. Every pod has its own dialect, its own social hierarchies, and uniquely engineered hunting tactics passed down from generation to generation. They do not act on instinct. They think, they communicate, they plan. When a seal seeks refuge on a floating ice floe, it believes it has escaped the horrors of the water. It is wrong. When the orcas find a target out of reach, they do not give up. They initiate a synchronized attack that defies belief. They line up in perfect formation and charge toward the ice at 20 miles per hour. At the very last second, they dive. Watch closely. They are not just swimming. They are manipulating the ocean itself. They create a localized tsunami, a calculated, perfectly shaped wave designed to wash the prey off the ice and straight into their waiting jaws. This is not a wild attack. This is applied physics, fluid dynamics weaponized by an apex mind. In the Arctic Ocean, you don't just have to fear the predators. You have to fear the water itself, because the orca commands both. The orca dominates the light, But the Arctic Ocean hides a realm where light never penetrates. As we descend past 1,000 feet, the water pressure becomes agonizing. The temperature drops below freezing. Yet the water remains liquid due to the extreme salt and pressure. This is the Abyssal Zone. Up above, survival is about speed and intelligence. Down here in the pitch-black freezing void, survival is about patience and resisting death itself. Here we can meet the nightmare of the deep, the Greenland Shark. Everything about this predator defies logic. It is massive, reaching up to 24 feet in length, rivaling the great white. Yet, it is the slowest swimming fish of its size on the planet. Cruising at barely 1 mile per hour. Its heart beats only once every 12 seconds. Its metabolism is so slow that its lifespan is almost incomprehensible. Scientists have dated these sharks to be over 400 years old. The creature you are looking at right now could have been swimming in this exact spot before the invention of the telescope, before the Industrial Revolution. It is a living fossil, silently watching empires rise and fall. But immortality comes at a horrifying price. Look at its eyes. Almost every adult Greenland shark is completely blind. A specialized bioluminescent parasite known as Omatocoita attaches itself directly to the shark's corneas, eating its optical tissue. The shark wanders the dark ocean, trapped in absolute blindness. So how does a blind, sluggish giant hunt fast-moving seals? It doesn't chase, it drifts. It uses its highly tuned olfactory senses to locate seals sleeping in the water column. Moving so slowly that it produces zero hydrodynamic wake, the seal never feels the water shift. The shark simply materializes out of the darkness and inhales its prey whole. Even its flesh is a biological weapon. Saturated with urea and an antifreeze compound called TMAO, its meat is highly toxic to most other animals. It is the ultimate untouchable phantom of the abyss. As we ascend from the blind depths, we enter the Twilight Zone. Here, the water column is not empty. It is heavily mined. In a world without solid ground, some predators don't hunt with teeth or bone. They construct floating cities of venom, drifting silently on the Arctic currents, waiting for the unwary to make a single, fatal mistake. Behold the lion's mane jellyfish, the largest jellyfish species on the planet. Forget everything you know about standard anatomy. It has no brain, no blood, no heart, no bones. Yet it is one of the most effective and expansive killers in the Arctic Ocean. Its dark red bell can grow up to 8 feet across, but the true horror lies beneath it. It trails a devastating net of over 1,000 individual tentacles. Some of these translucent threads can stretch up to 120 feet long. That is longer than a fully grown blue whale. It does not swim toward its prey. It creates a massive three-dimensional minefield in the open ocean, and every single inch of those threads is armed with millions of microscopic, harpoon-like weapons called nematocysts. The moment a fish or crustacean brushes against a thread, mechanical triggers release a high-pressure spring, firing venomous darts into the victim in less than a microsecond. The neurotoxin instantly paralyzes the prey, shutting down its nervous system while it is still fully conscious. Slowly, the tentacle retracts, pulling the immobilized victim up into the ghost-like digestive cavity. It is a predator that feels no anger, no hunger, and no exhaustion. It is simply a floating, venomous algorithm of death, drifting through the frozen seas. As we ascend from the venomous depths, we hit a solid ceiling, the underside of the polar ice pack. For most marine life, being trapped under miles of solid ice is a death sentence. You cannot breathe, you cannot break through. But for a select few, this inverted landscape of frozen canyons and submerged caves is a private hunting ground. To navigate a labyrinth with no light and no air, you need a specialized key. Enter the Narwhal, the mythical unicorn of the sea. For centuries, sailors believed this creature was pure fantasy. But the reality of its anatomy is far more astonishing than any myth. That magnificent spiral horn protruding from its head is not a horn at all. It is an inside-out tooth. Most teeth have a hard enamel shell on the outside to protect the nerves inside. The narwhal's tooth is reversed. It is porous on the outside, exposing over 10 million microscopic nerve endings directly to the freezing ocean. It is a biological sensory wand, highly sensitive to changes in water temperature, salinity, and barometric pressure. It can literally taste the water, detecting the exact chemical signature of prey hiding in the dark. But when it finds a school of Arctic cod, it does not spear them. It uses sound as a weapon. The narwhal generates directional acoustic clicks at up to 1,000 times per second. The sound waves are so intense they physically disorient and temporarily paralyze the fish. The whale simply vacuums the stunned prey into its toothless mouth. It is an acoustic sniper, armed with the most complex sensory tooth on the planet. But elegance and sensors can only take you so far. In the shallow waters near the coastlines, the ice is unstable. The environment is violent, shifting continuously with the tides. The walrus, its scientific name, Odobenus rosmarus, translates to the tooth-walking seahorse. But there is nothing delicate about this giant. Weighing up to 3,000 pounds, wrapped in skin that is 2 inches thick to protect against polar bear claws and freezing water, the walrus is a biological dreadnought. Its massive ivory tusks are used for dominance and to haul its crushing bulk out of the water. But when it hunts, it descends to the pitch-black seafloor, turning into a weapon of mass excavation. In the muddy abyss, eyes are useless. Instead, it uses hundreds of highly sensitive whiskers, called vibrissae. Each one is supplied with its own blood flow and nerve network. They can detect the microscopic shape of a clam buried deep beneath the mud. And once it finds its target, it performs an act of terrifying physics. It presses its lips against the clamshell, pulls its tongue back like a piston, and creates a vacuum seal. The suction force generated by a walrus is powerful enough to rip the flesh right off a human arm. In a fraction of a second, the clam is sucked violently out of its shell, leaving only shattered debris behind. We have reached the end of the line. The geographical North Pole, the absolute center of the great biological filter. Here, the ice is miles thick. The temperature defies comprehension. There are no plants, no soil, no shelter. To stand at the apex of the world, you must be the ultimate culmination of everything we have seen. You must possess the patience of the wolf, the insulation of the Wolverine, the stealth of the owl, and the power of the deep. Meet the undisputed king of the Arctic, the polar bear. A creature that weighs over 1,500 pounds, standing 10 feet tall. Yet, paradoxically, it is invisible. The apex predator of the ice is an optical illusion. Its fur is completely devoid of white pigment. Every single hair is a transparent, hollow tube. It acts as an advanced fiber optic system, capturing the rarest photons of sunlight and channeling them directly to its pitch-black skin. It absorbs light like a black hole, while reflecting the snow to remain completely unseen. It is so perfectly insulated, it's virtually invisible even to infrared thermal cameras. But its most mind-bending adaptation is not its coat, it is its thirst. Surrounded by millions of square miles of frozen seawater, drinking is impossible. Eating snow would drain too much core body heat. The polar bear lives in the largest desert on Earth, so how does it survive without water? It manufactures it. With an olfactory system capable of smelling a seal buried under 3 feet of ice from a mile away, It finds a breathing hole and waits, for days if necessary, slowing its heart rate to conserve every joule of energy. When the strike comes, it is instantaneous. When the bear consumes the thick blubber of the seal, its metabolic system acts as a chemical reactor. By breaking down the fat molecules, the bear's body produces pure, crystal-clear metabolic water as a byproduct. It doesn't just eat its prey, it drinks them. No chase, no struggle, just the flawless, freezing mathematics of death, executed by the ultimate product of Arctic evolution. From the frozen edges of the tundra to the crushing, lightless depths of the abyss and the dead center of the polar cap, we have witnessed the absolute limits of biology. These 10 predators are not cruel. They are not evil. They are the magnificent, terrifying result of life refusing to be extinguished. In the Arctic, nature does not negotiate. It demands perfection, and those who answer the call become legends of the ice. Hope you enjoy this journey. If you survived the cold, hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment on which predator terrified you the most, and prepare for our next descent into the wild.